An amazing phenomenon occurred following the conquest of the southern Israelite kingdom known as Judea, whereas the northern 10 tribes, conquered by the Assyrians in the year 722 B.C.E., vanish from the stage of history. The remaining 2 southern tribes, Benjamin and Judah, uncannily survived in exile in the great city of Babylon, and also along the canal called the Chebar, extending from the Euphrates River. The community they established there was called Tel Aviv, or Hill of Spring. The prophet Jeremiah had conveyed to the people a social justice mission that gave them a reason to go on, but now it fell to a priest named Ezekiel to add flesh to bone and keep hope alive. Deported to Babylon in the year 597 BCE, his prophetic activity overlapped with the last part of Jeremiah's oracles, continuing all the way to 571 BCE. In shock over the catastrophe, Ezekiel spoke to no one for 5 years. But one day, he had a vision of the divine presence, unspeakably powerful. ויהי ואני בתוך הגולה על נהר כבר, נפתחו השמיים ואראה מראות אלוהים, ואראה והנה רוח סערה באה מן הצפון, ענן גדול, ואש מתלקחת ונוגעה לו סביב, ומתוכה כעין החשמל, מתוך האש, מתוכה דמות 4 חיות, וזה מראיהן. דמות אדם להנה, ו4 פנים לאחת, ו4 כנפיים לאחת להם, ודמות החיות מראיהם כגחלי אש, בוערות כמראה הלפידים. היא מתהלכת בין החיות, ונוגע לאש, ומן האש יוצא ברק, ואראה החיות. והנה אופן אחד בארץ אצל החיות, ל4 פניו. מראה האופנים ומעשיהם כעין תרשיש, ודמות אחד ל4. ומראיהם ומעשיהם כאשר יהיה האופן בתוך האופן. על אשר יהיה שם הרוח ללכת ילכו, שמה הרוח ללכת, והאופנים ינסו לעומתם כי רוח החיה באופנים. ודמות על ראשי החיה רקיע, כעין הקרח הנורא, נטוי על ראשיהם מלמעלה, וממעל רקיע אשר על ראשם כמראה אבן ספיר. דמות כיסא, ועל דמות הכיסא דמות כמראה אדם עליו. מלמעלה ואראה כעין חשמל, כמראה אש בית לסביב, ממראה מתניו ולמעלה, ומראה מתניו ולמטה ראיתי כמראה אש ונוגע לו סביב. כמראה הקודש אשר יהיה בענן ביום גשם, כן מראה הנוגע סביב. הוא מראה דמות כבוד השם, ואראה ואפול על פניי. Rumination on this vision would, over the centuries, occupy ground zero of the mystical discipline known as Kabbalah, and meditation on the chariot throne known as the Merkavah in Hebrew would become the earliest strain of Jewish mysticism. But beyond the mystical elements, the most important aspect of the vision is that Ezekiel, a Jewish exile, has seen the divine presence outside of the holy house in Jerusalem and outside of the land of Israel itself. The gods and goddesses of the pagan world were confined to their temples, but this God does not dwell in temples made by human hands. The Israelites are beginning to fully understand the radical nature of monotheism, that this is the God of all the world, of all the universe, of all humankind. Of course, there are always issues to debate. Do we understand this vision as a theophany, a visible manifestation of God, when even Moses wasn't allowed to see God's face? Or was the experience confined to an aura or apparition? This could be a two-pipe problem. Bear in mind, Ezekiel is careful to note that he saw a likeness, suggesting that he only seemed to see these things. Something like a throne, like a man, like the glory of the divine presence. That's because during this creative stage in the development of monotheism, God has become increasingly other. And the impact of the vision itself is what we would call alien. God addresses Ezekiel as Ben Adam, son of man, or mortal man, emphasizing the gulf that now exists between humanity and the divine realm. Abraham had a certain intimacy with God, but in Ezekiel's case, there was only distance. Nonetheless, the divine world is coupled with a practical program. The distinctively Jewish element is that it's not just about religious enlightenment, but action. The prophet Ezekiel is commissioned to address the wayward Israelites. He's given a scroll covered with lamentations and told to eat it so that it becomes part of his being. Like so much Israelite prophecy, the episode is both strangely compelling and repulsive. To readers down to the present day, it evokes not nirvana, but nervousness, divine tension, and radical discontinuity. Whereas paganism celebrated the harmony between the gods and the natural world, this expression of ethical monotheism evoked terror, not tranquility. The divine world had indeed become foreign and alien to human sensibilities. But oddly enough, when Ezekiel consumes the scroll, it tastes as sweet as honey. He will go on to obsess over idolatry, describing the pagan worldview as pure filth. The prophet relates that he is lifted up by the Spirit and whisked away to Tel Aviv. Ve'eshev sham shivat yamim, mashmim betocham. Afterward, he's told to act out bizarre mimes and strange behavior. We also understand through all of this how the Jewish people have become marginalized, outsiders in a pagan world. For the next 2 millennia, they will be living as an oppressed minority, and for that reason, they will have great sensitivity for the cause of social justice. Yet, the prophet is denied normal responses. He compares Israel to an unfaithful wife. Ha'isha hamena'afet tachat isha tikach et zarim lechol znut yitnu nedeh ve'at natat et nidnaich lechol me'ahavaich v'tishchedi otam lavo elaich misaviv betaznutaich. When his own wife dies during the siege, he is forbidden to mourn. He is told, Ve'ata ben Adam, kach lecha levena, v'natata ota lefanecha, וחקות עליה עיר את ירושלים, ונתת עליה מצור, ובנית עליה דייק, ושפכת עליה סוללה, ונתת עליה מחנות, ושים עליה כרים סביב. He's also told to shave his head and scatter his hair, symbolically foretelling the fate of his people. He's commanded to lie on his left side for 390 days and on his right side for 40 days. He's to pack his bags and trot around as a refugee. He's to dig a hole through the wall as if to escape. He's told to eat siege rations and cook his food over dung to signify the coming starvation during the siege of Jerusalem. Hercule Poirot here. It is a fair question to ask whether the prophet Ezekiel actually carried out such things or whether these should be understood as literary symbols existing only in his mind. That's the stuff of scholarly debate and perhaps an issue for a good psychiatrist. On another occasion, Ezekiel is supernaturally grabbed by a lock of his hair and transported to the Jerusalem temple to discover idolatrous practices still being conducted and the priests engaging in sordid rituals by an eerie light. On the walls, he sees images of disgusting animals and slithering snakes. Some worship the sun, while women are seen crying for the sufferings of the god Tammuz. As the prophet looks on, he sees the strange chariot from his first vision depart, abandoning the temple and carrying the glory of the divine presence with it. In a short but revolutionary sermon, he brings forth the notion of the Babylonian exile as the true Israel of the future. A promise is issued that the people will be gathered from their exile once again. God himself becomes a little sanctuary in Babylon. The little sanctuary concept would be key in what Israel would become during the centuries of wandering ahead. Ko amar Adonai Hashem, ki hirchaktim b'goyim, v'chi hafitzotim be'artzot, ve'ehi lahem lemikdash me'at, בארצות אשר באו שם. כה אמר אדוני השם, וקיבצתי אתכם מן העמים, ואספתי אתכם מן הארצות אשר נפוצתם בהם, ונתתי לכם את אדמת ישראל, ובאו שמה, והסירו את כל שיקוציה, ואת כל תועבותיה ממנה. The ideas and the hope expressed here would, during the centuries to come, pave the way for a whole new house of worship, the synagogue. And the rest is history.